2187 AD, the end of the Cradle Incident. 4 members of the Conclave, led by Cronus, were determined to be the ones responsible for Justice' resurrection attempt, but thanks to Sol and his team's efforts, they did not prevail. Of the 4 Conclave members, only Cronus survives. Ever since the dawn of revival, mankind has been under constant attack by what is known only as the Universal Will. And yet, mankind was strong. They overcame the countless crises bestowed upon them, and are welcoming the new era with open arms.
Heaven or hell. Get ready to rock.
Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator. Prologue Assassins. Slayer suffered an embarrassing defeat to Bedman in the series of incidents prior. Right now, he somehow found joy in the events that transpired. Invigorated by the prospect that he could be bested in combat by a human, Slayer prepares for a rematch by training with Zato 1 and Milia Rage. Zato, who saw through Bedman's tricks, offered Slayer the strategy, but he refused to have his fun spoiled. Despite giving it their all, Slayer does not hold back. Remotivated, he remarks that he intended to save his power for the day he faced Sol, but his blood is now boiling. From Zato's perspective, after dying and undergoing an incomplete resurrection, Zato's heart has forgotten all of its emotion, but he has vowed to become stronger, that he may protect the one entity that is capable of stirring his emotion, Milia. Before sparring, Zato presents Slayer with a question. Long ago, determination gave him power in battle, but since his return, he no longer feels anything. Win or lose, que sera sera. Yet, this emptiness allows him to use 100% of his current strength. Which was stronger? He then has a battle epiphany, realizing 100% was not enough to defeat Slayer. By becoming single-minded on protecting Milia, his body moved faster than he thought possible. Slayer is inspired. The incident that shook the world to its very core, and Zato's revival, amidst this whirlwind of drama surrounding her, Milia Rage's heart did not know how to cope. Zato confesses to Milia. He wants her to live a normal life, but to her, life outside the guild never felt normal. She wants to become strong enough to not need his protection. Slayer is brutally honest about her weakness in training, but could sense her desire to not be left behind. The only home she knows is the Assassin's Guild, so for the sake of others like her, she sets her goals on becoming its next leader. World catastrophe, Zato's sudden revival. In the rapid unfolding of surrounding events, Zato worries for his organization's future. Venom stands ever by his side. They contemplate that Bedman effectively defeated the entire organization. As leader of the guild, he shows them his resolve to reform the guild as a public and legit organization. Prologue: Illyria, Zep, and Eastern Chip Kingdom. Although the initial crisis was averted, the mysteries surrounding the incidents have not been unraveled. Constantly running from subsequent disasters, a dark, gloomy shadow was cast over Potemkin's very being. Gabriel gives Potemkin a new assignment: investigate the former Conclave's hideout and rendezvous with Kai. Sensing Potemkin's broken spirit from his recent losses to Bedman and Ramlethal, he reminds them that a warrior who loses a match is second-rate, but one who loses to himself is third. But a first-rate soldier has experienced both. Potemkin faces his true self and finds his confidence. He meets Kai at the Conclave Opera House. Mankind has once again narrowly escaped extinction by the hands of another Valentine, but the incident was far from over. The first king, Kai Kisk, begins his investigation in hopes of uncovering the truth. Kai searches the Opera House for evidence of the Opus connection to Gears. Potemkin arrives, calling Kai foolhardy for coming alone and sharing intel with a rival nation. After a duel, Potemkin questions his ability to be a wall of defense for Zep. This time, Kai laughs at Potemkin as he explains that he too feels powerless before the unknown threat, but the only way forward is to unite and offer the world hope. Just as they find evidence, Chip Zanath interrupts. The Conclave plans got thwarted by Sol and gang. However, Chip ponders on the turn of events as the world recovers. Chip distrusts the government PR surrounding the Cradle incident. Ignoring Answer's pleas for him to act more diplomatically, he interrupts Kai and Potemkin at the Opera House with his own intel. He's uncovered that the new threat is being called the Universal Will. Chip has a hunch that this isn't a mysterious force, but something that acts out of deliberate hatred for humanity. He considers the Sanctus Maximus, but Kai is insulted at the prospect. He backs off, leaving Kai with a kunai and advice.
お前はイリュリアの、いや、世界を代表する王様だ。常に冷静さは失うな。そして、何かがあった時の覚悟を持っておけよ。だからもし、お前が疑わしき人間と出会ったら、こう聞いてみろ。人間が好きかってな。
With Sol's help, Kai managed to undermine the Conclave's plot for world domination. However, that was merely the opening act of an even bigger conspiracy. Kai knew that a greater battle awaited him. Though he tried to hide it, Dizzy could clearly see the fear in his eyes. Kai inspects the old Thunder Seal sword, surprised to learn that it regenerates over time, now that Dizzy is free. Sensing sadness in Kai, Dizzy reminds him of the day that they met in the grove, when she asked him if being prepared to protect someone means being prepared to hurt another. He replied that the value of power gained from hurting others must continuously be questioned, lest you stop even recognizing your own actions. Dizzy wishes she had a heart as strong, to which Kai replies that all she needs is a chair in her heart where one can sit for a conversation. I wanted to show you that some humans are able to handle your power. Back in the present, Dizzy says that her power has meaning now and shows Kai with a fight. Holding his hand, she tells him she has a chair in her heart now so that he can always come home. Prologue, Jack-O's Awakening. With her life, she was given a destiny. She was more than well aware of this, as Jack-O Valentine woke up in a dark, gloomy room. Nonetheless, the sudden turn of events has left her existence incomplete. Ino wakes Jack-O earlier than planned. She says her memories and personality data are still fragmented and unstable, as over half of her soul has not been downloaded. Due to her incomplete state, her personality hard switches back and forth between childlike to mature. Defying Ino's instructions to stay put, Jack-O boosts away to assess herself and this era. Landing in Heaven's Edge, she marvels at the tomb dedicated to all possible futures. She wonders if it relates to her being the scales of Juno. She lost her restaurant, her piggy bank was light, and the man upon whom she'd set her sights was out of reach. Jam was frustrated. Looking for a change of scenery, she happens to cross paths with Jack-O, seeking the same. The two quickly strike up a friendship. Jack-O feels she has nothing to want or to lose, and feels unsettled. Jam can tell that Jack-O is half human because she only has half the key that a person should. She recounts her restaurant burning down for the third time. Jack-O is shocked that Jam can start from nothing so many times. Jam answers by sweeping Jack-O. As she gets up, confused, Jam asks, "Did you need a reason to stand up again?" When they part ways, Jam tells Jack-O to save the world by just living her normal life. Always return to yourself.
わかったか？おかち持ちから出直しよ。
Elsewhere, Sol, Sin, and Ramlethal are operating around the clock to get Elphelt back from her kidnappers, but time continues to pass without any solid leads. Just then, the most unexpected guest shows up. Once again, Raven appears before Sol, but this time he asks for help. Justice is still in the enemy's hands, and her revival must be stopped. Sol is naturally distrusting, but Raven swears to Sol.
背徳の炎よ。誓って関係ではない。不服なら、いつでも私の首をはねろ。そんなんでてめえは死にゃしねえだろうが。シン、支度をしろ。
At Heaven's Edge, the group encounters Ino, who is abandoned tracking down Jacko, telling Sol that she's now more interested in his seed. She attacks him, but after he fends her off, she escapes. Sol demands answers, to which Raven replies he's not sure how much he's at liberty to say, but explains that the universal will is aiming to create a new humanity to replace the current one. Valentines are engineered souls, designed to merge with the vessel of justice. The merging of Elphelt with justice will create this new humanity, but that man is working to keep this from happening by using Jack-O, a Valentine of his creation, to fuse with justice and act as a lid preventing the universal will from seizing control. The group finds Jack-O, and suddenly Sol's head begins to hurt, just as it did against the first Valentine. Raven commands them to apprehend her but not destroy her, which confuses Ram. Destroy should only apply to objects, not human beings. Raven says that she's a doll just like you, but then corrects himself, saying to detain her with minimal damage. Jack-O vaguely recalls Sol as a different name, but she can't remember. She feels as if she had something important to tell him. Under the mask, her face also looks like Arya.
私はジャック・オー・バレンタイン。
バレンタイン。
そう、バレンタインシリーズの完成形。ジャスティスの完全なる適合生態。だから私はアリアの半分子だよ。そう、半分。
いえ、それは正しくないわ。正確にはフラグメント化されたアリアの記憶データを統合し、ジャスティス個体としての情報セクターを上書きする組対復元ユニット。ユノの天秤を人類に還元する役目。でもごめんなさい、せっかくの再会だけど今はまだ半分だから、あなたのことはあまり思い出せないの。それでも心が激しく揺れるのを感じる。きっと昔の私は相当あなたを思っていたようね。
そんなはずはねえ。それが本当だとしたら、お前はアリアはジャスティスの組対だったってことか。そんなバカな話があるか。
あなたの心も感じるわ。とても激しい背徳の炎と戦ってるの。
Raven gives thanks, telling Sol that he will soon have a heavy role to play once the Gearmaker is free. Flame of Corruption is not a nickname, it's the power Sol's been implanted with. Sin remarks that Raven is lucky to have such a long lifespan, to which Raven explains that it's like being forced to eat your favorite food for eternity. Days begin to lose their meaning when life goes on too long.
そうだ、それと同じなのだ。長く生きすぎると人生もまたその甘美な味を失う。
そんな、じゃああんたたちは生きてるのが辛いってのかよ。
それを否定したくて皆必死に人間のふりをしている。いずれあのお方が答えを出してくれると信じてな。
なんだよそれ。どんだけネガティブな運命なんだよ。
No matter how many times Ino repeats history, the future always converges on a single point. Nonetheless, the closed worlds were slowly beginning to show signs of change. Perhaps the tomorrow she sought lies beyond. Chasing after Jack-O, Ino arrives at Heaven's Edge, but runs into Axel Low instead. I have to return to my timeline. Axel was motivated by that thought and that thought alone. His only lead, his glimmer of hope to make this true, was Ino's power. He once again asks, please, send him back to his timeline, or if she can't do it, just say so. Ino comes clean. She can't send him back specifically, because the past he wants to return to has no recollection of the present future. Jack-O then returns. Somehow, knowing Axel's name, she says that Ino doesn't have all the answers, and that man's pretty mean, so he probably didn't tell her. Suddenly, Jack-O forces a vision of the truth into Ino's head, showing her entire being, a mosaic made up of moments and people.
理解した？それが本当のイノちゃんだよ。
ふざけんな。なんだこれは。
まだそんな強い感情を抱いていられるんだ。本当にすごい。生物の強い念が宿り、ただの物体が意志を持つことがある。それを魔気と呼ぶことは知ってるわね。聖戦時、人々が明日を求める願いの力はかつてないほどに強く、結果として一つの魔気を作った。その強い念が宿った物体はバックヤードそのもの。すなわち神羅万象のこだわりが一つの生物になった。バックヤードはこれを世界を崩壊させるエラーと認識した。だから人の体にその意識を封じ込め、あらゆるイレギュラーな権限を与えることでその危機に対処したの。それがイノ、あなたよ。
Ino doesn't believe it for a second, but Jack-O tells her that this is the reason she's obsessed with tomorrow.
つまり存在自体がイレギュラーってことかよ。あの男は私の力が欲しかったわけじゃない。ただ目の届くところに置いときたかっただけ。
彼は意地悪だけど人を駒のようには使わないわ。あなたもレイブンも救おうとしているのよ。
まあいいさ。どうやらあんたたちそっち側の話よりも面白いことになりそうだ。私は世界の一部。世界は私の一部か。
Jack-O calls Ino and Axel both necessities to the world as well as horrible mistakes. Axel is a possibility spun out of a broken future that doesn't belong in this world. In terms of backyard code, all beings are assigned individual physical IDs. Ino's individual ID, which was created outside the understandings of this world, and Axel's ID somehow overlapped through a freak miracle. All of the irregular laws that were applied to her also applied to him. Like a shogi piece that wandered onto a chessboard, he is considered a threat by the universal will, because if he chooses to jump to a different world, the one being left behind will be destroyed in a flash. Jack-O, the artificial life form, created to stop Justice Revival, had escaped. After Raven retrieves her, he begins searching for another ally lost along the way. Frustrated at dealing with the switching personalities of Jack-O, Raven is concerned about her revealing the truth to Ino prematurely. She's supposed to be a contingency plan if Soul fails. Jack-O says that there's a method to her madness. As she awoke early and ahead of schedule, she told Ino ahead of schedule. But her early awakening means that the other Jack-O, Happy Chaos, is not yet awake. Raven leaves to find Ino, remarking that telling her the truth might have been the right decision. But sometimes right isn't good enough. As he leaves, a voice from somewhere in the sanctuary speaks to itself.
使わせてもらう。
Raven tries to convince Ino to return, but she refuses. Ino explains that something about that man has changed, and while she was once invested in him, now he's gone to the other side. She felt like she lost her favorite toy. He admits that Jacko was inconsiderate, but she should still consider that man's kindness.
だからさ、いいんだよ施しは。うんざりなんだよ。この体にはもう何も残っちゃいない。せいぜいが辺り構わず殺気を振りまくくらいのことしかできない。それなのにまだ力が手に入る。やれることが増えてくほどにやりたいことがなくなっていく。足りないものが手に入るほど欲しいものがなくなっていく。
いいの。私がその苦しみを知らないとでも言うのか。
気づいてないの？あんた今そっち側の顔だよ。
Raven asks if this is where they part ways. Ino smirks and says it's not like they were friends in the first place. But he might see her around from time to time. Prologue, Colony. The colony is being managed by someone with more influence than the Conclave. Once Faust discovered this, he took action, to see for himself if the odd phenomena can really happen with the Japanese people, as he predicted. To get to the bottom of things, Faust brings Cronus to the Japanese colony to verify that he sent no orders there, and to meet with Johnny's friend, Master Tuner Kum Hae-hyun. Cronus reveals that while it looked like Soul stopped the merge with Justice, the truth is that Justice rejected him first. He wonders if the Universal Will knew that the Conclave would fail, and sent orders to the colony as part of a larger plan. It would be behaving in a deceptive human-like manner, as opposed to a straightforward entity or force. Meanwhile, a few days have gone by since the incident that brought the world to its knees. The second king, Leo Whitefang, finds himself buried in piles of paperwork. After receiving a tip from President Vernon and a report from an outpost in Finland, Leo investigates strange occurrences in the Japanese colony. Faust and Cronus arrive and run right into Leo, who can't believe his eyes, but they quickly escape. Johnny, May, and the jellyfish pirates head towards the Japanese colony in hopes of finding a cure for May's worsening condition. At the same time, there are bizarre occurrences witnessed in the colonies. He explains to May that a tuner is to human beings what a guitar or piano tuner is to their instrument. The flow of ki within a person can be tuned to unlock full potential, or with neglect cause illness. With incredibly poor timing, Johnny and May run into Leo just after Faust and Cronus leave. Leo, being watched by his subordinates, quickly schemes to let Johnny off the hook, but the situation escalates. Eventually, they're interrupted by Kum Hae-hyun. With a complete understanding and control of all things material, Kum Hae-hyun is a master tuner. Hearing there was an incident with the Japanese colony, she rushes to the scene to investigate. Hae-hyun departed to investigate the Japanese colony. Her client, Johnny, met him on site. The happiness of the reunion is short-lived, however. Hae-hyun looks towards the town and her expression darkens. Later, May inquires about Kum's name, which she thinks sounds cute, like a girl's name. Kum teases her, but then decides to reveal the truth. She's actually a teenage girl, piloting Jeon Ryok Kum, an exoskeleton of an old man. She inherited the position of head of the Kum family, but due to strict traditions preventing women from leadership, she hides her true identity. Johnny hesitates in asking for the favor, knowing that it's a lot to ask, but Kum reassures him.
先日のことだ。それがしのもとに古い友人から連絡が入った。どんな男が常ならば決して発さぬ頼むという言葉を使った。 さてウヌがそれがしの立場ならどうする？恩に切る。ドクターの連絡先だ。直接話してくれ。
Faust connects to Kum, and they discuss the situation. Colony residents have had strange symptoms. Daily temperature increases of 0.002 degrees, rapid increases in metabolism. Faust believes a cure can be found in an ancient book he's seen before. Kum is no doctor, but can tell that something massive is affecting the entire population. Worried about containment, she compares the situation to seeing black smoke, but no fire. The enemy is not the outbreak, it's time. As a child, Baiken had her family and her home stolen away from her by war. Small and weak, she could do nothing to stop the attack. She could only watch the chaos around her as the face of her disgusting foe burned itself into her mind. Now she lives her life solely for revenge. Wandering her own path, a collect call carrier makes the mistake of sneaking up on Baiken. On the line, she's being asked to return to the colony as it's becoming overcrowded with outsiders of all kinds. The man on the phone also reports to her that he has no info on the whereabouts of that man. Revealed to be Anji Mido, he wonders how to tell her that the gearmaker might not be the one who she wants revenge on. The universal will. Believing it was somehow related to the recent incident, Chip ordered Answer to investigate. Working hard on the case, Answer receives a call from Hiyori, another of Chip's government employees. Answer reports that he found a conclave note hidden in Harden Fort that sounded like a confession. They had an ideology behind their actions, but it's unclear if and how they worked with the universal will. Finishing up his investigation, Answer arrives in the Japanese colony, sensing strong ki in Ogre Valley. He is immediately detected by Baiken, who doesn't take kindly to outsiders trespassing, even if they call themselves diplomats. After all, the administration has already labeled the people of the colony a cancer upon the world. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Answer shows Baiken his note and explains that it's not yet clear why the administration is showing up in the colony, but if Chip's hunch is right, this isn't over yet.
ここが戦場になるってことか。そうならないことを祈ります。しからば。
Prologue. Universal Will. Elphelt regains the emotions she almost lost. Nevertheless, she's fallen into the hands of the Universal Will. The Sanctus Maximus looks over an unconscious Elphelt and revels at the thought that a destiny centuries in the making was nearly upon them. Just a little more. Elphelt awakens, no longer wearing her wedding attire. She seemingly has forgotten all recent events and thinks about finding a husband, but realizes she's forbidden from falling in love. She can't remember who Mother is. Standing alone at the central organ tower, she wonders if she'll ever get married, when suddenly a system voice is heard. Something resembling Soul appears and hits on her.
いい天気だな。こんな日はてめえの可愛い顔がクソでかい、美しく見えるぜ。
やだもうソルさんたら。あ、もしかして私を狙ってたりします？
悪くねえ。こんないい女、俺のギアの血がバーベキューにするってことだ。やったー！じゃあ受け止めてください。上出来だ。
Elphelt tries to get him to sign the nuptials, but her memory breaks down again.
シチュエーション G 修正エラー。
見るに耐えない。もうやめよう。不思議には思わなかったのかい。君は誰にでも素直に好意を寄せられるので、実は自ら遠ざけている。きっとこのやり方では君を傷つけてしまうだけだ。
あの感情が芝居じゃねえって言うなら。
うるさいな。やれやれ。これではいけないな。
The most recent turn of events for which the world holds the Conclave responsible was but a small part in a much grander scheme plotted by the Sanctus Maximus and Bedman. What exactly is the world of absolution? The curtain was about to rise. Elphelt awakens once again in a dream. This time, Bedman greets her, wondering why she was born with emotions anyway. He explains that she's about to become the world tree of a new era, and that Mother is trying to help all these helpless souls that need to be recycled and cleansed. He offers her a pleasant dreamlike reality, where she can wish for anything, but she rejects it, attacking him. Ultimately to no avail, she begins to feel a headache and starts to wake up. Alarmed that she might be reacting to the flame of corruption, he teleports away. He locates the cause of the disturbance, Jack O. Valentine. Confused and unsure about who or what he's looking at, Bedman has never heard of this cast member. After a fight ensues, he is shaken by the readings coming from her backyard power. Suddenly, the child becomes the adult.
完了。あなた自ら登録を抹消しているのね。とんだ変態行為だわ。でもここまで法力学に通じた人材は見たことがない。せっかく面白い話ができそうなのに残念ね。敵対する前に出会いたかったわ。
なぜそのことを知っている？そんなことザトウのような一度死んだ人間でなければ。まさか。
ああ、なるほど。あなた覚醒しているとオーバーヒートしてしまうのね。物理メモリではあなたの思考速度を処理しきれない。
Shocked at what the Gearmaker had up his sleeve, Bedman realizes that she's just as compatible as Elphelt, and he's trying to beat them to justice, preventing their world of absolution.
彼女は危険だ。
Elphelt awakens from the dream and remembers where she was, imprisoned in justice, awaiting the fusion. Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator Story Mode. In an unknown location, Ariel stands next to Elphelt at the Corpse of Justice. A radio plays Ariel's sermon. Meeting Mother for the first time, El is disgusted at her disingenuity, but Ariel assures her she means every word. Killing all redundancies will allow for the true humanity to be born. El having emotions is necessary, else she'd be no different from all the redundancies. She muses that Ramlethal has become a hindrance, and perhaps it's time to kill her. At a supernatural research facility in Finland, Zappa and his co-worker Randy shoot the shit about things like spontaneous spikes of backyard data density known as information flares, Randy's infamous global hacking prowess, and the new cute girl in charge of Sector 3. In the years since his incurable possession, Zappa has channeled his distress into studying the supernatural as a hard science, realizing there was nothing occult about that which could be measured and quantified. Suddenly, a gargantuan information flare with tremors is detected, classified Category 3 on the Zappa scale of paranormal likelihood, unprecedented in size and scale, until suddenly multiple are detected. Kai requests an audience with the Sanctus Maximus to discuss the matter of the Opus units. Ariel says that it was her oversight, but Kai places the blame on the Conclave. She asks how he would keep the public from panicking, and he says that he would tell them the truth, dismantle the Opus, and dispatch soldiers in their place. Ariel is unimpressed, but Kai believes that the Opus uprising would be a worse outcome than just upsetting the public. She agrees to decommission the units, and noting how beloved he is by the people, asks him to participate in the upcoming celebration of the end of the Crusades. Kai doesn't think the time is appropriate, but she feels inspiration is needed now more than ever.
精進いたします。それでは。
だからもしお前が疑わしき人間と出会ったらこう聞いてみろ。
どうしました？
いえ、その人類にとって耐え難き苦渋の歴史は全て人間が自ら招いた結果とも言えます。 そのような愚かな存在でも西王様は人間を愛していますか？
私は西王ですよ。そのような質問答えるまでもないのでは？
As Kai leaves, what little doubt he had becomes something close to certainty. Bedman appears, warning Ariels of the existence of Jacko.
だが彼が隠していたジャック王という少女はおそらくジャスティスの完全適合生態だ。
Zato speaks directly with Daryl, the third king of Valyria. He's pragmatic and somewhat dismissive of Zato's questions. He'll clear a path for the assassins, so he just wants results. Kai questions Daryl's intentions to absorb the Assassin's Guild without consulting the other kings. Daryl explains that it has not yet happened, but he did so knowing that Kai would have rejected outright. We live in a world where the conclave that founded their laws couldn't be trusted, nor could their lapdogs, the post-war administration bureau. Kai is aware that his method of justice through litigation would have been a massive time and resource sink. Daryl says that he's simply doing what Kai did in bringing Ramlethal over to their side, as they needed all the allies they can get. The assassins then meet to celebrate the next chapter for their guild. Slayer remarks that it was right to not go to Kai, as Daryl seems heavily motivated by profits. Their next order of business is tracking down Bedman to reclaim the guild's honor. Venom politely declines to stay for wine and cheese, as time is of the essence for his next mission. Soul meets up with Axel for drinks at a bar, and asks him to investigate the past for any clue that could help. Axel's known Soul for centuries, so he can tell that this request isn't just business, but unfortunately, he can't help. Because despite discovering that he has subconsciously been controlling his time slips, he can't do it anymore. Axel tells him the truth. If he world jumps, everything could end, but Soul doesn't really seem to react. Axel asks Soul what he would do if he chose the old timeline.
なぜそんなことを聞く？ぶっ殺すとでも言ってほしいのか？
そうじゃないけど、自分でもどうしたらいいかわからないんだ。
厄介事が増えるな、ごめんだ。
Soul rides his Firewheel Mark II motorcycle, named for his summon during Baptisma 13, thinking of the conversation with Axel.
盲目な進化による破滅と一人のエゴによる破滅、どちらがよりくだらねえ。
Suddenly, the ground swells and erupts, and a giant unknown beast attacks. But quickly collapses onto itself, triggering a massive explosion. Soul barely escapes by launching over a cliff. Without enough time to cast Levitate, he summons the Firewheel and uses Junkyard Dog explosions to propel himself to safety. Looking back at the explosion, Soul accepts Paradigm's offer to reach out to the Gearmaker for answers. In downtown Illyria, two troublemaking children are throwing rocks at RoboKai, who appears to be living off the streets, washed up, and selling services. As the kids are getting the best of him, Venom approaches. He offers RoboKai a job, but seeing his ridiculous behavior, he thinks, what a massive waste of post-war administration bureau money and resources. Zappa's reports were getting ignored, so he decides to build a case, and starts by visiting the Royal Library. But everything he looks for is already taken, by Faust, sitting nearby. Happy to see a familiar face, he notices the books, including one written by Slayer, and realizes they're working on the same case. The duo then travel to the gates of Illyria Castle, but a guard is giving them a hard time for attempting to barge in. Just then, Leo and Paradigm are walking through the castle grounds, discussing recent reports from Finland, when they spot them at the door. Kum uses her tuning abilities to read May, and sees that there's a notable difference between someone like her who's had suppressive treatments and the rest of the residents. But she's running out of time. May gives her a pirate's charm for good luck, but quietly reminds her to remember to eat because she's been skipping meals. Sol sits in Kai's office as he does paperwork, telling him to hurry up before his foo-foo soft cushions turn his ass soft too. Kai offers to switch seats, but Sol says that chair would turn him square. He pauses a beat and asks,
なぜ聞かねえ。
何をだ？
俺の過去だ。
聞いていいのか？
保証する。面白い話じゃねえ。二言目には勝負だのなんだろ。あれほどやかましかったお前が。いや、お前だけが未だに何も聞かね
え。あの頃はお前を剣で任すことしか考えていなかったからな。他のことはどうでもよかったのさ。それに月も落としたくなかった。
お前がそんな玉か。
言ってなかったが、こう見えて私は信心深いんだ。それ、私もお前の過去に興味がないわけではない。しかし相手を理解したい気持ちと全てを知ることは違う。私にとってはフレデリックという男の過去よりもソル・バッドガイの未来の方が大事だ。
Sol asks if Kai really thinks he has a future. Kai then offers a glass of whiskey. He himself doesn't drink, but hears this is a good one. And it lends to the atmosphere. Sol says it'll look better if some's missing, and Kai agrees. His job is to give people hope so that they can still enjoy the little things. Hope doesn't have to tip the scales of the world, but if he can't look out for his friends, he's not fit to rule. Sol says he can start by learning how to drink. Sin visits Ram in Royal Fleet 1 and notices that even her posture is emotive now. Her fingers are showing anxiety. She's worried about L, and worried about fitting in.
私もそう。人の幸福を定義することは難しい。私は多分今幸せなんだ。でもこの窓に映る私が笑うには L が足りない。
窓？
ここで得た時間は幸せで暖かかった。光のある世界。窓の向こうは冷たくて寒い暗い世界。暗い世界からは明るいここが見えてとても羨ましいんだ。でもこの光の世界から外を見てもそこに映るのは幸せな自分たちだけ。L はずっとあっち側にいる。ここからは見えない暗い闇の中に。
飯だ。
親父、なんだよ急に。まさか飲んでんのか？
ああ。ギア細胞の最も優れている点は人並みに酔えることだ。
Sol walks over to the window and smashes it, and the entire wall of the ship with it.
ラムレザル、窓一枚で人の幸福を隔てる。お前が壁だと思っているものはお前自身の迷いだ。そんなもんはぶっ壊せ。行きたいところに行ける。ダニー・ミサイルズだぞ。
Ramlethal's favorite burger joint. Chip and Answer review their plans for the Eastern Chip Kingdom's involvement in the upcoming war. Examining the Conclave letter written by Libraria, it implies that the Conclave and Universal Will were at odds with each other. Answer also reveals that the previous Sanctus Maximus, Happiness the 27th, was deranged before he died, but on his deathbed, he mentioned Universal Will, years before the first Valentine ever appeared. He was also the one who directly appointed Ariels as Cardinal. In a wasteland area, Badman closely observes another massive gear explosion.
順調に成長している。佐野中蔵。
Suddenly, he notices Slayer, casually walking towards him.
吸血鬼、なぜここに？
リベンジ。 はり面白い。今のは当てるつもりだったのだが。
From a distance, Zato explains to Milia that Bedman's trick relies on reading your mind just before you attack, and the only way around it is to simply stop thinking. As they fight, Bedman is forced to take things seriously.
8% だけ本気を出す。
おいおい、温まるのは少し早くないかね。もう少し小出しにしていこう。その方が楽しい。もう少しというのはわがままだね。
ザトウの能力が機能することは分かった。この辺で満足してちょうだい。
こんな機会、この先100年もないのだが、この先は私の友人に譲るとするよ。
With that, they teleport away, leaving Bedman confused. In Illyria Castle, a meeting of the minds between Paradigm, Faust, Zappa, Sol, Kai, and Leo is underway. Leo is in over his head, as others are discussing magical theory and the links between everything occurring.
の風船が現実の空間だと思ってください。この中には1リットルまで水が入るとします。そして水は情報です。まあ風船ですから水が1リットル前後で多少増減することはそんなに問題にはなりません。ところが何らかの原因でこの水が突然10リットルとかの大きな単位で増えてしまう現象を情報体フレアと言います。
Information flares are what happens when the information mass exceeds 256 pb per cubic meter. The results can sometimes cause possession or strange phenomena to occur, such as spontaneous combustion or seeing someone who's halfway around the world. Under extreme circumstances, matter can be rewritten, like turning dirt into steel. Faust has a different hypothesis, however.
これを見てください。破壊神ジャスティスが聖戦を始めた日、同時に日本が消滅した日の記憶です。生存者の証言内容はまるで今回の件に似ている。ここです。ジャスティスが日本を破壊する直前、ジャパニーズの体に異変が起こったことが記されています。
その時、坂田はもだえ苦しみ、巨大で異質な生き物へと変貌を遂げた。これは
The genetic after effect was kept relatively secret, but this is the reason the Japanese survivors were quarantined into a colony and given treatment to delay ill effects. But now, since a placebo was recently introduced, they'd be vulnerable if they came into contact with a powerful information flare. The resulting overload would exceed the limits, creating volatile antimatter. Understanding the danger, Faust gets to work on a cure, while Zappa gathers prediction data for where the next flares will occur. Ino and Axel meet in unknown liminal space. Surprised that he found this place, she remarks that he must have control over his abilities now. She wonders if he's going to give her some pipe dream about using it for the greater good, but he says no. He's afraid of the fact that he could theoretically do anything with it.
犬は何もしなきゃただの犬だ。だけどもしその犬が自分は狼だと主張すれば、少なくとも犬以外の何かになる。そいつにしか見えない景色も見つかる。一 人が生きていく権利なんてね、自分以外の誰も見つけてはくれないんだよ。
Jacko is frustrated that they're running out of time and can't move until that man returns. The longer they wait, the lower the rate of success. Raven notices an injury on her leg from fighting Bedman and begins healing it. She asks why he's being so nice today, to which he replies that he's forgotten what it's like to have normal conversation, or to use his voice for anything other than fighting. Raven realized that when he hurt Ramlethal by calling her an emotionless doll, he became one himself. He swore not to let that happen.
あなたがそんなおセンチな人だったとは驚きね。
Leo tries to get a read on Sol about his past, wanting to know what his long-term purpose is behind stopping justice for personal reasons. He offers to wipe the books clean if Sol saves the world. Sol says the only thing certain is that he's getting back Elle no matter what. She doesn't belong in the world of ancient relics like him or Jack-O. Zappa and Paradigm use the advanced castle equipment to run Zappa's forecast of information flares, and they quickly realize that the concentrated projection of flares over the Japanese colony will result in a cataclysmic explosion with enough energy to fuse Elfelt and Justice. Bursting into Leo's office, Paradigm reports that they have 52 hours to stop them from engulfing the world. During the Cradle incident, Bedman sealed the Gearmaker inside of a prison surrounded by absolute defense Felion. But he's able to sense what's happening outside. Suddenly, Kronos appears in the unknown space and dispels the barrier, noting that that man's black hole strategy worked on the Cradle but can't be done alone. The spell can only be cast by those with proper authorization, even within the backyard, so this makes it clear who the enemy is.
人類とギアの血の歴史に完全なる決着をつけねばならない。となれば、お前はあのソルバット街に全てを話す必要があるだろう。
そういうことか。100年以上も告白できずに過ごしてきた。正直怖いな。恨まれていればフレデリックとつながっていられると思ってきた。ちゃんと説明できるかな。
修士論文よりは簡単なはずだ。
論文に友達を失う覚悟は必要ないだろう。
Kronos says he's beginning to understand why their master entrusted the Gearmaker with the seed. Kronos has taken many lives, but has no regrets, as it was all to preserve the future.
止めてくれ。
Kum Hae-hyun receives an unexpected visitor, Baiken. She asks if Kum can save her people, noting that he has no obligation to do so. He explains that each link on the chain he wears is from a different country, and that they're united in the hopes that people will also come together. Baiken is satisfied. She leads him to a sacred tree, hidden from outsiders, that has been nourished with ki from birth. It should be able to magnify ki abilities manyfold. As long as he protects her people, she'll protect him. Ariel sees that Paradigm and friends are starting to move. Elfelt pleads with her to stop, but to no avail. Ariel says that the perfect tomorrow she creates will be one in which everyone agrees. She's been incredibly patient, and she commends them for trying really hard for millions of years up until now. But if you burn some eggs making breakfast, then you just have to make them again. Ariels then summons Phalanx 9, her personal guard of mind-controlled warriors, as well as an antimatter gear, with a little girl as a hostage. In the Illyrian War Room, Zappa has the command center scan all Category 2 areas for non-evacuees. Recognizing her voice, he perchance asks Alexis if she's the new girl in charge of Sector 3. She is.
入ったな。ダンディに10ドル払わないと。
Scanning over the Scandiva area, she suddenly starts picking up Elfelt's signal. That man returns to the sanctuary and reconvenes with Jacko and Raven. They suspect El's signal is a trap, and Raven departs to Scandiva. Paradigm suspects a trap as well. Ramlethal volunteers to go in. At worst, casualties are kept to a minimum, and at best, she can scan for clues. Sin joins her, as does a minimal escort of soldiers. Upon arrival in the Scandiva sector, the group splits up to cover the evacuated area. As they do, Ariels drops an antimatter gear right above Ram. It begins collapsing, so she flies away, but notices a little girl still within the blast radius. She stops to save her, but gets ambushed by a Phalanx 9 unit. Quickly summoning Lucifero, she throws the hostage up and commands him to escape with her, knowing that it's too late for herself. She sends Sin a message.
シン、私は本当はずっと笑う練習をしていたんだよ。いつか私とエル、そしてシンと一緒に笑えると思って。
なんだよ急に。こんな時に話すことじゃないだろ。
Elphelt screams, but Ariel says this was always the plan for Ramlethal, the failure. Later, a convict hammer reports to Kai that some remains of Ram have been recovered for a state funeral, but that his report also contains other disturbing results. Paradigm confirms contact with the Gearmaker. He teleports directly into their office alongside Jacko.
人類はこの木に全てを生産する。今度こそ決着をつけるんだ。時は来た。全ての真実を語るその時が。
That man explains that the Universal Will's actions seem to be confusing at a glance, but have a singular purpose: the creation of an everlasting, indestructible life form that will serve as humanity's replacement. The Big Five mass extinction events of the past were not limited to Earth. They were previous instances of the absolute world, wiping out life across the universe.
絶対確定世界の瞬間にね。
バックヤードには2つの情報有機体が存在する。そうね。アダムとイブとでも呼称しましょう。アダムとイブは意志や知性を持たない。お互いただごく稀に出現しては消滅を繰り返しているの。でもその2つが同時に出現すると、現世とバックヤードは境界が曖昧になり、一時的に融合する。それが絶対確定世界と呼ばれる状態。そしてその状態に耐えられないものは絶滅してしまう。
の死である第一の男は再び絶対確定世界が起こらないように、アダムとイブをそれぞれ2つの種に封じ込めた。
種だと。
一つをユノの天秤と名付け、そしてもう一つを
背徳の炎と呼んだ。
Leo then asks why the Universal Will wants to create a new humanity.
そうだね。それじゃあ昔話をしよう。ある男の現在を。